It's a third line day. We are in the gate of principles and revolution, which is gate 49, and the third line is called popular discontent. When you get to the third line and you get to popular discontent, we have the theme of irresponsibility. The 49.3, it carries the wave of allegiance or rejection. Bonds made, bonds broken. So you know what kind of revolution you're going to get and what kind of revolutionaries these are going to be. These are the on and off kind of revolutions. You're part of the punk revolution and then immediately you jump over to the goth revolution and then you go back to the punk revolution again. This line is conditioned by the two most powerful planets in our outward cosmos. Is that the right way of saying it? The two most outward planets. So that's probably better. Pluto, no, yes, Pluto in the detriment and Neptune in the exaltation, which means that there is a very special sort of generational value that comes through, and only at certain times in our process of life coming into the world. So in the exaltation, we have the ability to destroy antiquated forms once the restrictions have been removed. The potential insensitivity to reject failed principles or relationships. This is a kind of classic bonds made and broken. This doesn't want to stay back today, does it? Bonds made and broken. If you won't support my principles, then I don't want to have anything to do with your need, and I will go and find someone who needs my principles. And at the same time, you can feel, if you're a 49.3, you can feel like no one's going to support your principles. And of course, that can make you very uncomfortable. It's this whole business of banging into things, but not knowing in advance what you're banging into. So you've got no control and you can't really plan it. So the moment the 49.3 is emotionally uncomfortable with the lack of resources, then they get ready to jump on the revolutionary bandwagon. They will just jump right in there. And they can actually bring quite a lot of people with them. They might start up a mini revolution with a, why can't I buy raw milk in the supermarket anymore? Because they want that resource and it's not there, and let's do something about it. So in the detriment, with general support, a savageness in eliminating an old order that may permanently scar the new, an insensitivity in rejection and rejecting. So the 49.3 says, I have this principle. You follow this principle or you don't get to eat. You don't get to come to my table. And I have the support of others in that. So of course you can run into situations that are savage, where there are those who are left out, who in terms of the collective have every right to be included. Remember this real difference between the optimism in the 13.6 and the law of necessity in the 49.1. They're very different. And they have to find a way ultimately to come together. And they only do that through mutation, which has to be an individual process. So we have it all going on here. The 13.6 says the collective being is all beings are equal. This is what the collective is saying in the 13.6. Everybody has within them a spark. Everybody has a right to the basics. This is what we're finding in the 13.6. And the 49.1 is saying, oh, well, that's very nice, but it has to be according to the law of necessity. I have to look after my family before I'm going to feed any strangers. And I'm not going to sacrifice the security of my family and its resources in order to give most of that away, either in taxation or social welfare programs, in order to benefit people who don't do anything, who aren't even part of my tribe, who don't contribute to my community, blah, 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 blah. All of this kind of stuff goes on. This is a major point in our evolution, to come to grips with these two different processes. Everybody is worthy. Everybody has value. Everyone has a right to resources. Yeah, but they're not really doing anything. They're not doing it for me, and they're not looking after my benefit. And of course, one of them is emotional. They're totally emotional here in the 49. The tribal principles, emotional. It's very easy to be optimistic in times of hope, not so much in times of pain. There's a genetic continuity here between the 6.3, the breaking of allegiances, and the 59.3, which is promiscuity. It can be very painful for some people. After all, this is tribal. It needs support. There's always going to be a bargain. It's very sticky. All of these things come into it. You bring someone into a revolution and then you turn your back on it. After you've brought them into it, and you're going to change because, actually, I don't believe in that anymore. Have fun. It's like, thank you. The 49.3 is always going to react that way. It's their mechanic. They're going to look, it doesn't work. Yeah, okay, I started it, but it doesn't work. I'm not going to have anything to do with that revolution. Why would I have something to do with a Marxist revolution? I really like having a Mercedes to drive around in. So on the other side, there is an insensitivity in rejection and rejecting. This is what leaves the scars. Yeah. And it can be brutal. How many times do we hear the word brutal when we go through the 49? It's one of those things Ra said about it. It's like, it's a brutal gate. If you get left out in a revolution, you're the one who has no access to the resources. So it can definitely leave scars in others. In order for revolution to be of value, it has to be viable. It cannot just be simply for the power. And the grounding is coming from gate 4 in the third line, of course, called irresponsibility. And the lifetime learning says the general refusal to apply oneself diligently when one can get by with much less effort. So, of course, the genetic continuity is very clear here, because starting a revolution, eliminating an old order, which may or may not come with a sensitivity to the rejection that may or may not happen, well, all of that could be seen as being somewhat irresponsible. Kicking off on the wave before you've allowed the wave to run its course, that can be a bit irresponsible. And this is a keynote that is applied to all third lines, of course. We've heard Ra refer to the irresponsibility of the third line before. And it's not a moral judgment, of course, it's just the mechanic. This is just one of the ways in which it plays out in the not self, mostly. Although, it has to be said, if you are irresponsible and you are responding correctly to being irresponsible, nothing bad is going to come of that if it's what you're supposed to be doing. So Venus moves into gate 17 at 23:27. This is the Ajna gate of opinions. It's a logical gate. It's in the same stream of understanding as our Earth gate 4. We live in a world that values very strong opinions. And not just strong opinions, but consistently strong opinions, which can put a lot of pressure on an open ajna, trying to be sure of itself. So what do you value? Do you like being sure of yourself? Is it important to you? Which is fine, of course, if your ajna is defined. Do you value the freedom of being able to change your mind, to be flexible, not to be fixed on your ideas and opinions? Because that's the hallmark of the open ajna. So Neptune is moving out of 36 and into 25 at 7:17. We know that, I think this is tomorrow, actually, tomorrow morning. Neptune makes things fuzzy. Neptune hides things from us. We're just coming out of the gate of crisis. So maybe now we will see all those things that have been going on that we didn't really realize were going on. The crisis has been behind the scenes and now we're privy to it. So how does it feel to have innocence shielded from us, a veil pulled over our potential for unconditional love? Neptune was here in April last year before retrograding back into 36, and it will be here in the 25 for around 15 months before playing ping pong with gate 17. And it's until the end of, I think it's December 2027. So it's a long time. It's going between the 25 and 17, the 25 and 17. How's that going to feel? Having Neptune shielding or veiling or making fuzzy our opinions and also our innocence and our potential for unconditional love. So the moon is still in gate 39 since 3:56 this morning, the individual root gate of provocation, looking for a spirit to match it and bring its abundance to the party. Next, the moon moves into the gate of beginnings, which is gate 53 at 14:01. This is another root gate, and this time it's a format gate. So it's looking up at the sacral. It's the format for the collective abstract circuit with its cycles of beginnings and endings, the discovery of a new experience that will enrich the collective after these experiences have been made sense of and reflected on. And then the moon takes us into the throat gate of detail, gate 62 at 10 past midnight. Making a channel with Venus. This is the channel of acceptance, a design of an organizational being. This brings the qualities of being able to see the bigger picture without getting bogged down in the details. Because if you have this gate, you have exactly the right amount of detail to give to people, not so much that you're overwhelming them, and not too little so they don't completely trust you. This is logical circuit. So the picture, the bigger picture, it must have the relevant facts, the relevant level of detail to back up the answers and the opinions that are all part of this stream, and to put to rest the doubts that start this stream off. It's a projector channel, and so it needs to be invited to speak. It needs to be recognized for the value of its opinions and the depth and correctness of its detail. So there we go. That's our third line for gate 49. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you for the fourth line tomorrow. Until then, as always, go gently.